Can we make a Monet painting like this one better? Is it possible for us to improve upon one of the best painters in the world, Monet, the leader of the Impressionist movement, one of the great landscape painters of all time? Can we improve his painting? I think it may be a possibility. Stick around and we're going to find out, all right? So today is Feedback Friday, and this is the day that we critique everybody's paintings, and we're going to see if we can make them better or find problems. Let's look at the paintings we're going to be looking at today. Now, people have submitted these paintings, and so we love to see if we can find issues with them, and we're going to just look at them all, and we've got some pretty incredible paintings. I don't know if we can make them better or not, but let's find out. Today is Feedback Friday. Okay, so when you watch this, you're going to start seeing problems in your own paintings by looking at other people's paintings being critiqued. So when you're watching, I want you to ask yourself, what do you see that you would change? Because as you watch this more and more, you're going to get better and better at composition and design. So a critical part of learning is to paint while getting feedback, because we can't see our own mistakes. We can't see what is drawing the eye or distracting us from the goal. And for me, it's easier to learn from other people's paintings rather than being critiqued by my own. I also learned from classic paintings like this one, for instance, which we're going to be critiquing in a few minutes, this Monet painting. It's a classic. It's a beautiful painting. And I look at this and I study it and I say, what did he do? What was his composition? What was his design? What was he thinking of? Where is he trying to draw the eye? And today we're going to go through that painting and many more and see if we can improve upon them. So let's get this show officially started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rose. Now, here's your host, Eric Rose.
Welcome to Art School Live. Today is Feedback Friday. We're actually here every weekday at 12 noon. We've been here since COVID began. We've got thousands of shows, and our goal is to teach people how to paint, to give them the confidence to know they can do it, even if they believe they don't have talent. We're here every weekday at 12 noon Eastern. Free art lessons, art marketing guidance, feedback, looking at classic paintings. And as the publisher of several art magazines, newsletters, I'm a competition judge, I'm an artist coach, plus I have 2 decades of painting myself, maybe even more than that. I might be able to see a couple of things in your paintings that we can improve. And sometimes you guys stump me, because sometimes, and I see one in here that is, I think it's going to stump me. I don't know if I can make it better, but we're going to try. So at least I'm going to provide you with a different perspective. Now, we have rules. First off, I hate rules. I don't like rules. And the reality is that there are rules in painting that a lot of us have learned, and those rules are meant to be broken sometimes. Right? One of the rules is never put anything dead center, but sometimes it works, but you got to do a lot of things to make it right. So, but the biggest rule of all in this particular case is be constructive, be positive. If you tear into somebody, you can destroy them with your words and they will give up. I've watched it happen. It almost happened to me. Everybody's at a different stage, and we want to be encouraging to everybody. Now, I couldn't paint. I felt like you needed natural talent, and after trying, I convinced myself I did not have what it takes. Do not do that to yourself. Don't let your head start telling you you cannot do this. You can do this. You can succeed. You can become a painter. You can become a better painter. You can get to the level that you want to get to, but you just need great teachers, great feedback, great practice, and even the bad days of painting are still fun, right? Because you're painting. So nothing here is personal. We're not going to hurt anybody. We're going to jump right in and provide feedback. Now, I can't get into the comments easily because I'm paying attention to providing feedback, but you guys can get into the comments. And what I would like you to do is say, this is what I see. This is what I would change, and see if we end up agreeing or not. If you want to submit your paintings, you can do it. Just go to streamlinepublishing.com/feedback. And if you make any changes after my suggestions, send them in so we can take a look at them. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. What is our first painting? Our first painting is a landscape painting. It's a lovely landscape painting, and I'm going to see if I can find it now on my tablet and go in here. We're going to start out with a black and white version of this painting. So what we're going to do is look at this and ask ourselves, are the values right? What does the composition look like? And so we're going to go in here and see if we can make this thing a little bit better. And it's from Jane in South Carolina. Jane, you've done a beautiful job here. Let's take a look at it. First off, the one thing I like to do is I like to go down the dead center, because when we were all in kindergarten, our teachers taught us to make everything in the middle, right? And so the middle, this is approximately the middle. And what a lot of people do is they tend to put their focal point in the middle, and you know, it can work, but usually it's just kind of boring. Now, there's nothing going on here in the middle. We don't have anything aligning up with either of the middle lines, and so that's a real positive thing, I think. Now, the next thing I like to do is I go into equal thirds. So I draw down 1/3 here, 1/3 here, then I go to 1/3. And you can do this on any shape of painting, even a round one, which we're going to find out, and ask ourselves, what's going on here? Now, this is kind of based, loosely based on the golden mean or the Fibonacci sequence, which is a technical way of looking at paintings. And usually we're looking to find a focal point in one of these quadrants where the lines meet. Not all four of them, certainly. So the first question I have on this painting is, where is the focal point? Where are we trying to take the eye? Now, what happens in a painting like this is the eye is going where we're pointing them, oftentimes. Now, we have a big giant arrow here, which is pointing to right here, and there is nothing right here that's going to satisfy that urge. And so we got a pointer that's going to the wrong place. If we were to change this pointer to do this, right, then we would be taking people to that as your focal point, or possibly someplace else. The other thing we want to keep in mind is that values oftentimes signal focal points. So where you have the highest amount of contrast meaning dark to light, so you've got a lot of contrast in a lot of different places on this painting. But if this is where there was a really big, strong dark and there was a big, strong light next to it, that would be a high contrast point. Or if this was just let's just look at this and say, we got something like super white right here, then maybe the edge of the tree. Now all of a sudden that contrast stands out. Do you see what I'm doing there? Okay, so let's look at this from the standpoint of a couple of things that might be worth looking at. And Jane, I think you've done a really great job on this. But the one thing that's I don't know, I wouldn't say it's concerning. I would say it's drawing attention to me, is these lines look pretty crisp. You've done a little bit of breaking things up in here, but these things are pretty crisp and sharp. And what I would like to do is see you break things up just a little bit more. The second thing is I would like to ask you, where are we going to point this? And so if we have to decide where our focal point is going to be, we have to, if it's going to be back here, then we've got to decide that. The other thing that's happening here is we have two almost equal size shapes. They're almost equal size. They're not quite. This tree is a little smaller, but they're kind of bookmarking this, and it probably could be improved. And so what I would look to do is either make this tree a whole lot bigger and so that it's not overshadowing this tree, and I'd like to make it, or maybe make this one a little smaller. What I do like is that you've got this idea of recession, right? This painting is smaller than this one, which perspective-wise is correct. And so, if you had a third tree back here and a smaller one, it goes back into space. So the other thing that we're going to look at here are values. And that is that we've got dark values. I like to say, where are the darkest darks in the painting? And to do that, we have to squint down. And when I squint down and I look at this, this tends to be, to me, the darkest dark right here. There's also pretty dark on this here and a little bit of spot here. And so where do we want the darkest dark? Well, typically we want a really good strong dark up front in here somewhere, and then you want your lights to recede. So let me just show you an example of that. So let's just use this as a guide. Let's assume that we're going back in space. So we're going to take our darkest dark, and we're going to put our darkest dark in here, and maybe in here too, because it's up front. Then we want this to have that sense of recession. So we're going to make it a little less dark here and a little less dark here. Then we want it to recede back a little bit more. We're going to make it a little less dark. Then we're going to make it even a little less dark in here, and even a little less dark in here. So what's happening is it still reads as dark. So this tree back here, if this were lighter, it would recede more. If we went to this middle here and made that tree a little less dark, that would make it stronger. So we're going to go to the color and work on this painting just a little bit here. Now, in the color changes everything, right? Because colors draw your eye. Gene, I think you've done a beautiful job on this. And again, there's a couple things I would probably improve. The one thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little spot of light in here, so we can carry this river over here, and we're going to make this our focal point. All right, we don't have to, but we're going to in this particular case. Now, I think your darks in here are probably just a little bit dark, so I would probably go in here, reduce them down. You want to have an edge, especially on one side, and you want to have an edge to kind of separate that, right? So you're bringing the eye back there. And what I would probably do, because I want to really draw the eye there, I'd probably put a spot of light right here on the edge of this river. Now the river could be going on, right? It could be going back there, but right now we want to put a spot of light. We're going to take a spot of chroma, maybe a yellow, maybe it's a, let's see if we can find something, maybe it's kind of a green, and we're going to put a spot of light right in here by this tree. Why? Because we want to draw attention there. If we put it everywhere back here, it's not going to, it's going to be maybe too much. We could take variations of it, so we could make it a little less dark, so we carry that on a little bit, but we want the spot of light by the tree. And then I know that means I'm supposed to be done. I would then look for a way I can get, some light on the edge of this tree. So I'm really drawing a lot of attention to it, maybe get a little bit of a light on the stem of this tree, so that we're just kind of drawing attention right in there. And then what I would do is I would mute back all of these other greens. First off, I'd probably look for a way to get a shadow in here, because these greens are drawing the eye. But I would just mute this back just a little bit, because what we really want to do is we want this to be just less attention getting, a little less garish in terms of color, because greens are tough, and we want our greens to, always put a little red in my greens. And this way we're kind of drawing the eye up here, and we're not putting a lot, we're putting a little bit darker in the front and over here, so we're not drawing the eye over here, and we're just kind of taking the eye from going out. Other than that, I think you've done a really beautiful job. And the other thing I'd be careful of is this tree and this tree. So I'd look for a way to maybe make this one stand out a little bigger and get some attention, and that way it's working to your benefit. Okay, nice job on that, Jane. All right, next we'll get to the a Monet painting in a few minutes. Okay, what do we have next? We have another landscape painting, and this is from Karen Haub in San Marcos. That's Texas. All right, Karen, this is really pretty. I like the soft edges. It's got a really soft feel to it. And now I've looked at the color version. The black and white one is helping me see a couple of things that are issues. And I think it's really lovely. But what I'm seeing here is that, well, first off, let's do composition. I always get ahead of myself. We'll go dead center. We're good there. Nothing happening here. Well, there is a little something happening here. We've got a little bit of an intersection of stuff happening this side and this side. And I'd be careful. I'd maybe lower that a little bit, but it's not critical. The next thing we're going to do is go straight, straight, thirds, thirds, and we got a focal here. We got a focal here, focal here, focal here. Now you really only get one focal point, but you can have supporting spots, but you've got to have, you know, the big problem in any painting is you got to have one focal point. So because otherwise you're fighting it. I don't know where to look in this painting. The first thing that I'm seeing is I'm seeing a path. I'm seeing a spot of light in here, or a spot of light in here. I'm seeing a lot of spots of light. And in a black and white, that is potentially going to draw the eye into the wrong places. The other thing I'm feeling is I don't feel like there's a good, strong dark in this. The strongest, darkest dark is in these little spots in here. So what if we were to strengthen this? If I don't know, I can't tell right now which tree is further forward, but I'm just going to play a game here and pretend this one is further forward. And I'm just going to, this is probably a little too dark. Let's just bring that back down a little bit. I'm just going to increase the dark on this tree. Trees, remember, are big silhouettes, right? And it's not always the case when they're in direct light. And this one's in a lot of light. But one thing to do is to do a no-tan, silhouette your things, and then you'll understand how it's going to read. Now you've got this one dark, and then this one will be less dark. And we've got to ask ourselves still, where are we drawing the eye? This is taking me out of the painting. Hello, I'm falling off the end of the painting. And maybe we can bring me back in. Now, yesterday I looked at a Van Gogh painting, and what he did is he took you off and then he brought you back by a strong line over there. Remember that a painting, a really good solid composition has a very strong horizontal, strong vertical, I got that backwards, and a strong angle, right? What we call dominant. And so let's look at the color version of this. That might help me. All right, so it's helping me a little bit, but it's still, okay, so here's what's happening. I got the path here, then you got the path here, but it's, and you can tell it by the color, but it's very, very close to getting lost because of all this other color in here. And I don't really know which tree is closer or further, but I think it's this one is closer. So I'm just going to enhance the darks, and I'm going to bring it down a little bit more. And the reason is because I don't want these to be equal at the base, right? So I'm going to bring this one down a little bit more, and I'm going to enhance the darks in it just a little bit more, and that's going to help it come to the front, right? And then I would probably, like I typically do, I would probably look for a good strong dark up in here. When you have little spots of light up in all these different areas, what's happening is it's drawing your eye away. So I tend to want to, even though it's there and I see it, I tend to want to kind of mute that stuff back just a little bit because it's just going to draw the eye. So what can we do to keep the eye from going out of the edge of the painting? We can look for ways to reduce down some of this this other stuff. Now, what I would probably consider doing is increasing the light on this path just a little bit, and maybe you take this path just a little bit further past the tree here, and then maybe a little touch of the path in here so you can really see it. And then the question is, where is it going to go next? It's going to go down here. So again, that's not necessarily critical. I would probably also increase a little bit of light on the path, but I still don't know where my focal point is. I don't know where I'm trying to take people, and paths are pointers. So if you're trying to take me back here somewhere, then maybe what we need to do is move this path and take us back here somewhere. And then there's a lot of busyness here, right? So you got this piece of water. So why don't we just make this a solid piece of land, get the path in here. And then we, maybe we want to draw people over to here to, maybe we've got a nice bright spot here and we want to kind of draw them in there. And so you've just got to kind of play games and look and ask yourself what you're going to do. What you've got is you're painting what you see. which is good, but also what you see is distracting. So I'm going to take these bright spots out of here. I'm going to take the bright spots out of here. I'm going to take some of the bright spots out of here, because I don't want to lead the eye everywhere. I want to lead the eye to one particular area, and we have to decide what that area is. So I would probably look for a way to make, a bright spot right here by this tree. And, then you're looking for a way to kind of lead this painting in. It doesn't have to be the whole path. It can be, other things that indicate, but you're going to basically try to take me back there. So that's what I would do. And again, there's a lot of muting that needs to take place in a couple of these areas. Good job on that. Congratulations. Okay, who's next? All right, we have a church painting in the fall, and it's really, really lovely. And this is from Linda Metzger. Congratulations, Linda. Okay, so I'm going to point out a couple of things that I instantly see in the black and white version. And I want to be, first off, I think you've done a really nice job on this, and execution is excellent. You got a really nice feel to this. So congratulations on it. So how do we make it better? I don't know. There's a couple of things, but first off, let's go in and ask ourselves the composition. So we're going dead center and dead center. And what's happening here is we don't have anything on this axis, but we kind of have the shoreline on this axis. It's pretty close. Now you've got what's happening here is you've got a shoreline that is just going downhill just a little bit. Now, Joe McGurl, who's one of the great instructors, and he has some great videos on PaintTube TV, he told me that if you have a slight angle, it's going to throw your eye off. It's going to read wrong. So he says, just keep things horizontal. So if you're trying to do something like this, then maybe you do something like this, change the shoreline to make it go back, but try to keep things horizontal. Now, I think also, you have the opportunity to have an angle, but you might want to consider a more dramatic angle, because otherwise it kind of feels like, it's just a little off. I think what I would do, first off, I would ask myself, do I want more sky or do I want more water, right? Because what's happening is you have the painting divided there and there. You also have the painting surrounded here and here in equal spots. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. So I would say, I would probably move the sky down, right? So I would compose this painting so it's more like this. And that way you've got more water here than you have sky here, right? If this is your line, that way also your line isn't going dead center. That's the first thing that I noticed. The second thing I noticed is that you've got two pretty close to equal sized trees that are framing the painting. And I don't know where we all got this idea that we're supposed to do that, but I used to do it all the time too. I still fall into that trap. So again, what you want to do, if you want to have something framing the painting, make this one go up and make it be a lot bigger and a lot more attention getting, and then maybe reduce this one down, or have three, so that you don't have equal sizes and equal things. That's one thing I would do. Now the question is, where's your darkest dark? It's clear your focal point is church. Your darkest dark seems to be right here. And what I would do is lay that darkest dark right down next to this. And then of course, you might want to get a little darker shadow in the foreground or something. I like your reflections. And now the other thing is you've got, did we look at the tic-tac-toe board? I'm not sure if I remember that. We did not do that. So you got a focal point here, you got a focal point here. This is pretty close to where it should be. I think that's good. This is a secondary focal point. It's drawing the eye a lot. You might want to just take that out and just move it over here, or put it on top of the church or something. But you could leave it there if you want to. If you do, just soften it up a little bit, because it's getting a lot of attention. Now let's go to the color version of this. I like the colors. I think the colors are great. Fall color is hard to do, and you've done a nice job. You've also got which is a really nice vertical here, a dominant vertical. And then this would be your dominant horizontal, right? Now, how do we get a dominant angle? Well, one of the things you could do is you could make a dominant angle by making these trees somehow go up or create the sense of it. And then, you know, our dominant angle down here in the reflection, that might be more logical because you can make the reflection come down. Now that gives you a dominant angle. The other thing is what's interesting here is these trees, the church is grabbing all the attention, but the trees are certainly distracting from that attention. So it's tempting, you know, when you have trees like this to want to make them stand out because they're so beautiful. But you might want to just consider, you might want to just consider finding a way to mute some of this back. Again, trees are silhouettes, and so you've got some darks in there. And look for a way to kind of make this is not drawing all the attention just by doing this, and then maybe by doing this over here. What's happening is now the church stands out a lot more. Now, the question I'm asking myself logically is, it's fall. How come all the trees by the church are green? So what I would do is I'd look for a way to put a really strong bit of color right around the church, and I would probably look for a way to do an extreme color so that, you know, right here by the church, there's a color that's not anywhere else in the painting that's really standing out, and it's going to help draw the eye there. And that way, and then you can still put some spots of color, you know, in here, but you don't want it to be too dominant because you want to just kind of say, okay, this is fall. There's a little stuff going on over here, maybe one of these trees. But your primary thing that's going to get all the attention is going to be right around this. And then you can put some of this color in this water, which is going to be fun. And that will help it a lot. So I think you've got a really good painting here, very strong. I would just consider making a couple changes. One other thing I would do, and I'm just noticing, and that is that this beach is bright everywhere. So I would look for a way to just make this beach less bright everywhere. This is not the right color, but I would probably pick a kind of a sand in the shade kind of a thing, and not bring a lot of attention because that draws a lot of light. Let me just show you here. See how much light it draws? Now, we take this down, and then we increase the light so that when we have a lot of light right around this church, now we're looking for ways we can draw attention to the church. And so everything is kind of bright, but if we get this, get some of this other brightness out of here, it's going to really help draw attention over here. A+, good job. Congratulations. What do we have next? Oh, wow. Well, this painting is from 𝗙𝗲𝗶𝗱𝗆 in the Philippines. 𝗙𝗲𝗶𝗆, you are a rock star. This is an A+ painting. This is one of the best paintings I've ever seen as a critique, and it's one of the best, more well-executed paintings from a contemporary artist I have seen in my life. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I am raving over this, and I love it. And I don't know, quite frankly, if I could improve upon this. Maybe not. Let's just look at this painting. First off, compositionally, nothing happening here dead center. She's kind of on the axis of dead center, but it works. It's sometimes I say center paintings work, and this works really well. She's right in here. And so the question becomes, if you did this compositionally different and you put her here, would it change the painting a little bit more? And I think it could. It might leave a little bit more space over on this side, and that way she's longingly looking out over the landscape. But and so let's just let's just crop it here to see what would happen, and see if we like it better or not. So I'm just going to go in here and just pretend this has been cropped out. Do we like it better when it's up against the edge there and she's looking out over the space? I don't know. I think probably I like it a little bit better. So I would consider that. The other thing I would look here is, Your darks are really pretty good. You've got the darkest dark in this painting seems to be here. Let me get my red. Seems to be in here, maybe a little bit in here and in here. And so, and there's a pretty big dark shape here. So I think the darks work pretty well. You might look for a way to enhance your darks just a little tiny bit more in here, Paulo. Maybe just a little bit darker, but it's kind of hard to tell in the black and white version, but maybe just strengthen it just a little bit more with some darks. But quite frankly, I'm not so sure. The other thing that's bugging me, and it's really interesting because I like this element, but first off, you've got a flower here. It's hard to see that flower because it's not very contrasty in the black and white version. And then you have these feathers that are floating in here, which is really fun and interesting. But the feathers are kind of drawing my eye, which is okay if that's what you want to do. If you want to draw the eye to the feathers instead of the flower, but I think the flower probably makes some difference. And so we might look for a way to get some of the gray of that sky right around this flower to kind of make that stand out. And then look for, can you get some of those grays against those whites and make them feel natural so that she stands out, the white stands out a little bit more. Now, if you take this feather out, I know this is sacrilegious to do that, but see how it's not drawing the eye? And if you take this feather out, it's not drawing the eye. And this rock over here is drawing the eye. So I'm not so sure that you want a lot of lights there. You got a light in here that's drawing the eye out. And I would probably look for a way to just make this just a little bit lighter in here. I mean, darker in here, draw some of these things that are drawing light, and then make sure that it strengthens this. And then I like the fact that you've got the light against the hair, but I would try to get some of the darks in here a little bit more. And that's going to just strengthen this. And it's really lovely. So there's nothing I could say to make this thing better. It's just really, really wonderful. I mean, look at the quality of that. That is just beautiful. Now let's look at the color version of it. Man, I'm just loving this. Now, there's a couple of things that you could do. First off, where is the focal point? Now, you're going to say the focal point is here. And I would say, yeah, that's the first thing you see. But look how much you're drawing attention to this red. Now, what you could do, you could pick up that red and put it in this rose, right? Now, that probably be a bit much. I don't know. But I think, overall, we've got really strong, we've got to make sure that we've got strong enough light on here. And this is drawing a lot of attention. These are drawing a lot of attention. So if you wanted to bring more light to the face, then maybe what we do is mute this white back just a little bit. And then we look for, can we enhance the face? And I think the answer is the face is pretty good. You got a nice strong yellow in here. You might try to get some of that yellow light in here just a little bit more and see if you can enhance this. But I'm being ultra critical, and quite frankly, this is just about as beautiful as it gets. I mean, this is really lovely. So just look for ways you can enhance the sense of light in there. But I mean, you should enter this into the ARC competition. It's really, really good. This is one of the best ever. Congratulations. Okay, what's next? Okay, we have a round painting. It's been laying around. Okay, now this is, so we're going to look at this compositionally. This round painting is pretty much photographed equally across. So what's happening here is we have very close to the center, we have the horizon line of the water. And I would be a little bit concerned about that. If we look at this from a tic-tac-toe board equal thirds, this is not equal, that's about equal, then this would be primary focal point, or this, or this, or this. Pick one. So this is pretty much close to in the same area. And I think, this is a really well executed painting. This is from Sue Alexander in Missouri. Sue, we're coming to Missouri with the plein air convention and we're going to the Ozarks next May. You need to join us. Tell all your friends. So the question is, where do you want the eye to go? The eye right now, where's the darkest dark in the painting? The darkest dark probably in here, but there's a pretty strong dark back here. Some strong darks around these trees, strong dark here, and not a lot of strong darks in the front. So, and these paintings, these rocks in here are kind of drawing the eye. And this is what most of the eye is going to see here. This is where all the attention's going. If you want the attention to be to the rocks, then you're doing the right thing. If you want the attention to be to the trees, then you got to mute these back in here a little bit. So we're going to look at the color version of this. And I learned a lot by looking at this from the color, Sue. First off, the one thing that we all have to be a little bit careful about, color is a personal taste thing. But if you look at the best paintings in the world, the best paintings in the world tend to be gray. And so the colors get muted back. And what's happening here is the colors are just a little bit pure and really beautiful. But if you can gray those colors down just a little bit, the painting might feel a little bit more elegant. Now, I'm not saying that it's not elegant. I'm just saying that the graying down of things can help considerably. And so think about that. I also think what you could do is I like to get a little tiny bit of what I would call pollution. Sometimes you can just have a little bit of some pink alizarin with some white, just kind of at the horizon line. Sometimes it's a yellow, but the idea is it just kind of helps separate things. But the thing that I'm noticing here is your mountains are awfully dark in the background, and the distant mountains are pretty gray. So what I would do here is I'd look for a way to, we're going to start from the back. We're going to work on the mountains in the background. I'm going to make them more blue and instead of more gray. And I think that if we get the right shade of blue in there, and you don't have to make it all the same because they're all distant and so on. I think they'll read a little bit more like mountains. And I think if we could make that sky a little bit brighter, to surround these mountains, to separate them, or maybe just increase the whites or the scents. But I think we just need some contrast in there. I don't know, that doesn't work for me. But the mountains in the background are a little bit too dark and a little bit too green for me. So I would probably, the way I tend to do mountains is I'll lay down a purple, a sense to create a sense of distance. So here's some purple in here. This is already making them have that sense of receding. Now, as the mountains go back, you've got another one here. So that's going to be just a little bit lighter. And this one up front, I'm just going to make it just a little bit darker. And so what this does is it makes it recede. Now it changes how the mountains in the background feel. And then I just take some little spots of a very subtle muted green. That's too much. And I'll put it on top of this just to give it a sense of green, so that the darks in it, the purples kind of help it recede. And so you want big shapes. And now the mountains in the background look completely wrong. And so I'm going to just go in here and see if I can darken them just a little bit. Big shapes. And also your peaks are all kind of the same. So I'd look for a way to have something become a little bit more dominant, and then get a little bit lighter on some of this. And then you can lay your snow in, and your snow's never going to be pure white. It's going to be gray or blue. If it's pure white, it's going to draw the eye just a little bit too much. And you've got a lot of pure white in here that's drawing the eye. So I would also take these rocks, I would mute them back just a little bit more, not quite as bright. And I'm painting rocks right now. It's very much on my mind. And then I would look for ways to really make these trees a little different. Now the trees are standing out. I don't think pine trees are that bright. They tend to be kind of a reddish kind of a reddish green, more like this. And I would look for an opportunity. First thing I do is I go in and I put this tree in silhouette. You don't want it meeting the top of this mountain right there. That's called a tangent. So you want to bring it up so it's above there. Get your tree in silhouette first. And this will help, first off, get some good strong darks in there. But also then when you go in and you lay some color on there, and it doesn't even have to be a whole lot, it's going to read a little bit more tree-like, okay? And I would probably even look for a way to reduce down the feel of these rocks just a little bit more, because they're sure drawing a lot of attention. So then we get some shadows in here that will help it considerably. These rocks in here, I'd mute them back too. You know, you might not need them. There's a lot of busyness going on. I know you're trying to lead the eye in here. It feels like that. And then I'd put a little bit of spot of light somewhere, like right here. If this is where I'm trying to draw the attention, I'd probably, you know, increase the color on the tree just a little bit, because I want this tree to draw most of the attention. And then I would probably put a little spot of light, you know, somewhere along the shoreline, just to separate the water in the background there. Okay, that's what we're going to do with that one. Congratulations. Do we have any more? Oh, I know. I think it's time. Can we make the Monet painting better? Oh, man. Well, let's look at this painting first off in black and white. When I look at this, first off, this has what we call very compressed values. And that's a very popular thing to do, and it's a very good thing to do. But I'm looking at this in black and white, and this painting is confusing me a little bit. The first thing that's bugging me is that this tree here, if it's along the shoreline, which it kind of feels like it is massive. And then there's another one here, which is massive. And then I can't tell if there's a shoreline here or not. But I think it's, you know, it reads really well, but it's confusing me a little bit. So, but what I really like about this is, you know, it's obviously a strong painting. There's a concept which I talk about. It's called Steelyard. Instead of doing a special segment on it, we'll just do it now. And that is that Steelyard is a balance thing. So if this is a big weight, let's say there's a fulcrum here, this is a big weight. What you want to do is have something small back here so it feels like it's balancing, right? And because the distance helps it balance. And what I was noticing about this particular painting is he's got this big mass here, this big weight. But these things in the background, I would probably enhance one of these buildings just a little bit more to make it feel a little bit balanced. The other thing I was asking myself is, where's the strongest horizontal? Strongest horizontal is here or here, dominant horizontal. And where is the strongest, I said horizontal, where's the strongest vertical? There's a vertical here that goes all the way down as his reflection. But what's happening here is this is a tree that ends here, then there's a spot in here, and then there's a big something up here, and it's creating the sense of vertical. But to me, it was reading like one big tree, and that bothered me a little bit. So I thought I'd probably take that out, mute that out just a little bit. And I think, you know, he's got this dark right in here, and that's where he's probably trying to draw the eye. If we looked at this from a compositional standpoint, we would look at this like this, say, okay, focal point, is the tree the focal point, or is it somewhere over here? And my sense is he's got things going on over here. I would probably look for a way to really make my brightest contrast point, you know, my purest white somewhere over here, and really draw a lot of attention over here. And he's kind of done that with the buildings. Maybe I'd make them a little stronger. That's the only thing I would do. The other thing is, where's the dominant angle? Well, this probably would be it. So let's look at the color version of this. And this is really lovely, really lovely. What a great painter he is. So now you can see a little color. There's like a building here. There's a tower here. And so I think that, to me, I would probably either strengthen this in here, but that would be dead center. And so that kind of bothers me. So I'd probably mute that out, move that completely. And then I would look for a way to just enhance over here somewhere, just enhance these lights, maybe even put that muted red building in right in here, and look for a way to pump up the light. I know I'm going to get, this is sacrilegious to critique a Monet painting, but maybe look for a way to pump up the light right in this area so that we're just really drawing attention over there. And then I would probably look for a way to get rid of this tree. It just feels like it's just a little too dark to me. Now, I think getting rid of that actually tends to help it. That's just what I would do. And I would also look for a way to get some of this dark just a little bit more in here, and maybe even enhance that dark just a little bit more to create a sense of, now this is where the eye wants to go. That's just what I would probably look at and do, and figure out a way to mute that back in there just a little bit. But, you know, he's the master and I'm not. He's dead and I'm alive, so I can say whatever I want. Okay. All right, so we did the composition, and so you got the steel yard, and if you want something to feel balanced, it's a good thing to do. Hey, we have an event coming up, and we have a free gift for you. If you're new to us, let's first talk about the free gift. We have a free video. It's called 97 Incredible Art Secrets. You can get it for instant streaming on your phone or your tablet or your computer. It's 2 hours long, some of the best tips from some of the best videos we've ever produced at painttube.tv. So, or you can get it on DVD if you want to pay for the shipping. You get the DVD free, but you pay for the shipping. It's 97artsecrets.com /ASL. Okay. Now, coming up in mid-August, we have Gouache Live. Everybody's painting in gouache. It's a hot medium right now. It's water-based. It's easy for travel. We've got Scott Christensen and a number of some of the best artists in the world who you can see if you go to the website. It's going to be a one-day event, and it's very inexpensive. It's $47, I believe. Just go to gouachelive.com. Hey, thank you guys for tuning in today. The other thing coming up, if you want to go painting with me, I love hanging out with you guys and painting, and we're going to be doing it again at Fall Color Week this year. Fall Color Week is going to be, it's my artist retreat. It's a week of painting, and it's in Door County, Wisconsin, 4 hours north of Chicago. You can drive up if you want, depending on where you are. We have people fly in from all over the world for these things. We paint for a week. We go out, we paint together, we eat together. We all stay in the same place. It's one price for everything. And we do portraits at night. It's really a lot of fun. You make a lot of great friends. This year it's in Door County, Wisconsin, which is spectacular. Just go to fallcolorweek.com. We'll paint together. We'll become friends. It'll be a lot of fun. All right. We're here every weekday at 12 noon. You can subscribe to this program. We've been here since COVID began. Just go to YouTube and hit the subscribe button. No matter where you're watching, or you're on Instagram or Facebook or X or something else, just Twitch, just know that go to YouTube and hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get our numbers up, and that'll help us, but it'll help you too. We just hit 18.2 million views. Yay. Thank you for making that happen. Go into the chat and congratulate yourself. And what I would like you guys to do is go into the chat and the comment and just make a comment about what you learned today. Was there one thing that stood out to you that you said, you know what, this is going to help my painting? I would love to see that so I know that I'm helping you. Hey, thanks for being here. I'm Eric Rhodes. Have a great day. Happy Friday. Bye-bye.